Hello and welcome back to Simmer Down Simmerly. My name's Haley. Tonight I'm going to be talking about breastfeeding during pregnancy and just my experience with it. It's been a while since I've posted a video. I've had another baby since my last post, so I now have a 2-year-old son and a 4-month-old son. I became pregnant with my second son while I was still nursing my first. My son was a little bit over a year when I found out that I was pregnant again, and I was still breastfeeding him probably 3 to 5 times a day, usually in the morning, before nap, before bed, and then in between if he hurt himself, if he's grumpy, things like that. So he was still, nursing quite frequently. And he wasn't ready to wean, and I wasn't ready to wean him. So I talked to my midwife and did some research and was given the okay to continue to breastfeed during pregnancy. And it's not very common, so there's not a whole lot of information out there. So I just thought I would share here my experience and some pros and cons of it. I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of cons, if I'm being completely honest with you. I have been very blessed with, I feel like, a pretty good breastfeeding story, I guess. When I had my first son, he did have a severe lip and tongue tie. And it took us a couple weeks before we realized it and got it corrected. So with my first son, I did have like the kind of the typical first mom experience where it was super painful and difficult and definitely made me question if I was going to be able to continue to breastfeed. But after that, that first like 4 to 6 weeks of like in the newborn trenches, I really started to feel like I got the hang of it and really loved breastfeeding. I don't have any issues now with like skin breakdown or clogged ducts or anything like that. I would pump occasionally, but mostly just would exclusively breastfeed him. And so I've had a pretty good breastfeeding journey, and I wasn't ready for it to be over when I became pregnant again. And I had heard about women who tandem fed their babies, and I was like, oh, I wanted to do that so bad, especially when I found out that I was pregnant and I still had a toddler that was nursing. So there were a couple of things though that made it difficult. So I'll be honest. There's I would say 2 cons that I found through the whole experience. The first big one for me was the nipple sensitivity. When I become pregnant, it's like my telltale sign is nipple sensitivity. I've been pregnant 4 times. We've unfortunately lost 2 babies before we had our first rainbow baby. And all 4 of my pregnancies, though, nipple sensitivity was very present. So when I got pregnant with my second son, I noticed that breastfeeding was more uncomfortable and sometimes even painful. And I knew it wasn't the skin breaking down. I thought at first that maybe I had like a cut or something that was causing the pain. And then I realized I was like, oh no, this is actually sensitivity from the pregnancy. The second con that I had kind of found with the experience was the fatigue. So there's all the jokes on the internet about how like your first pregnancy, you're like laying around and taking naps and reading books and watching TV, and your second pregnancy, you're chasing your toddler around. And I definitely experienced that, right? So I had a 1-year-old that I was chasing around the whole time, but I was also nursing him. So I felt like my energy levels were just like tanked because of that. So I had to really make sure that I was staying hydrated, that I was eating enough protein, getting enough calories. And that was a little bit difficult, especially in the first trimester, when you're nauseous and you don't want to eat anything, or you're just tired and you don't want to cook anything. So that part was hard and was a challenge all the way through just really trying to make sure that I was getting all the nutrients that I needed to feed myself, to feed my my baby that was in my belly, and also my toddler that was running around, because I was technically feeding 3 people. So that was definitely the cons of it. But I would say the majority of it was amazing, and I would 100% would do it again. So if you're pregnant and you want to continue to breastfeed your toddler and you got the okay from your OBGYN or your midwife or whoever's taking care of you, I would 100% support you and say, do it. It was so worth it. There are a couple things that I can think of off the top of my head that made it such a great experience. One, I'm kind of convinced that it put me into labor or helped with labor. I had a very quick second labor, and I know that breastfeeding or any type of nipple stimulation helps induce labor. My son came 2 weeks early, so I kind of wonder, obviously I don't know for sure, but I do wonder if that's why he came a little bit earlier, is because I was nursing my son the whole time. It made breastfeeding my second son so much easier. So I feel like you already know how to ride the bike, basically, and you never stopped. And I at that point had been nursing my first son for almost 2 years, and then I just went right into nursing the second one. I had no issues. I felt like I was able to latch him easily. I had no pain or discomfort. It was like the best experience breastfeeding this tiny little baby. Like, especially compared to, what I experienced with my first son as a first-time mom. It was so much easier, to the point where I did not realize that my second son, had a tongue and bilateral buccal ties. Those are the ties on the inside of their cheeks. And the only reason we caught it was because he was gaining weight, but wasn't gaining it fast enough. And the midwife's like, he's like kind of on the edge. And so we looked into his mouth and we're like, oh my gosh, she's got a tongue tie, but I had no pain with it. Normally, moms will experience a lot of pain and discomfort with nursing because of any type of tongue tie, lip tie, cheek tie, any of that. So I've personally felt, because I nursed my first son all through pregnancy, I was able to nurse my second baby much easier. Let's see, another thing I want to just say, kind of like fun facts about it, is your body completely changes with each baby. So your milk that's produced is unique to whatever child you're nursing. And I know recently I've been seeing that there's kind of almost like this backwash thing that they're saying might happen, where the baby's saliva is kind of like taken in to your body when they're nursing, and then you produce the milk that they actually need. And to me it's just amazing what our bodies can do. But once I had my second son, my milk completely changed. It just crazy. I went from being like the same for however long, nursing a toddler, had my baby, and then the milk came in again, it never went away, but it like came in completely different. It was like that rich gold colostrum color, and was completely ready to go for him. It was so cool. I will say, for me, I didn't have a lot of leaking. That wasn't really an issue for me with my first son, especially after like that first month to 6 weeks where your body's acclimating to how much milk to produce. But it was kind of crazy, because once I had my second son, I did have some of that leaking again, and then eventually kind of plateaued off, so I don't have as much of an issue now that my body kind of knows what both of my boys' feeding patterns are, which is really cool. So anyway, there's a lot of really cool things that I learned, and it's been, like I said, it's been an amazing experience. I would highly recommend it. I know a lot of people worry about like your baby not getting the food they need. Like I said, my body completely changed to feed my infant son. I did take, I think I had my first son not nurse for like 24 hours, but at that point he's almost 2. Like I said, he's drinking cow's milk and eating, and he can go a day or 2 without nursing, especially if he like goes and stays with his grandparents or something like that. But yeah, so that was the only thing. It was more so for me to kind of get used to feeding a newborn baby. But I mean, even then, I've heard that you can continue to feed your toddler and your newborn. You just usually want to feed your newborn first to make sure that they're getting everything that they need, because that's the only thing they're eating, and then anything left over goes to your toddler. So yeah, that was kind of my experience with breastfeeding during pregnancy. I plan to make a video on tandem feeding because I am still nursing both of them now. So, and I have so much to talk about with those. But thank you for watching. If there's anything you want to ask me, any questions, comments, things that maybe you've learned because you've breastfed during pregnancy, let me know, comment. I'll probably make another video at some point, maybe something a little bit more formal about breastfeeding and pregnancy, but I wanted to make something quick just to kind of talk about the experience. All right, well, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.